Alright guys, Jay Product Performance here. I think we're on part 3. Alright, so I went ahead and put this extension housing on. Real simple. I mean, I just put my gasket here and then just put this on. There's 5 bolts. Now, one of the things you have to kind of notice on it is this long bolt here. It's a blind hole, so you don't have to worry about oil seeping through it. But the other 4, those holes go through into the case. So on the 2 bottom ones here, I did put a little bit of anaerobic gasket sealer on the threads. Because if this thing sits a lot, the fluid level could actually drain out of the converter and potentially rise that high, and you'll get seepage around here over time. I didn't do it up here. I don't generally see an issue on the bolts that high. So I don't know about you, but on an automatic transmission, I try to shy away from sealer if at all possible. So another thing that's cool about these, if you look in this little window here, you can actually see the governor, and you can get to the governor, and you can remove the governor. You can even kind of grab this governor valve here and see how I've pulled it out, and you can see if it's free or not. Like I told you, this was hanging up before. It had some corrosion on it, but that's actually easy to fix in the car, unlike all your other Fords where drive shaft's got to come out and take the extension housing off, this and that. This is the one thing these early units had right. You had access to that governor, which is cool if you wanted to play with shift points and things. Of course, there's nothing available for these. You'd be making your own modifications to it, but I don't think anybody's really going to be fine-tuning governors on these old relics. But in any case, that's a pretty cool feature. Alright, so there's just here's the cover for it. And that just goes on with 2 screws and a gasket. I will put that on in a minute. So let me show you what's going on with this servo here. So I got the servos disassembled, ran them through the parts washer, and I told you about this rear servo here that you have to take. This is the arm that was in there, and I told you that there's a needle bearings in there, and I got that stuff right here, so you can see these long thin needle bearings. So what I got to do, one of the things I got to do is just take some of the assembly lube, pack this hole with that lube, and get those all set back in there nice and careful, and put this thing back together. Not hard or anything, just a little bit time consuming. And also this front servo, this one's kind of crazy. You've got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, there's 4 seals that go inside this thing. Okay, so that's something. So I say, a little bit time consuming to take these things apart, but especially this intermediate servo, you got 4 O-rings in there, you got to replace those. And this rear one, it's just got the 1 O-ring, but you got to deal with the little needle bearings, just FMX didn't have the needle bearings. They just eliminated that, so that one's kind of a piece of cake to rebuild. And again, not that this is hard, just a little bit time consuming. So okay, what I'm going to do right now, let's work on the intermediate servo, and I'll take this apart so you can see. So you have these 3 pieces here, and there's a spring inside it, and all that's going to go back into this housing here. So let's assemble this. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go find all the O-rings. These kits on these early units, they had a lot. You'll have a lot of O-rings left over. Don't be surprised by that, because this servo here, there's all different all different sizes of it, and it's really kind of a complicated servo with the 4 seals, you know, for such an old simple unit. It's kind of strange the way it works, which, you know, I'm not going to spend the time to get into that, but you don't need to know that. So let me go find the right O-rings for it, hope that I have them, and we'll see how we make out. I'll also find the O-ring for this reverse piston. And this here, there's different versions of this, but this is just kind of like there's just a heavy spring behind here. It just kind of cushions the apply. So that's all that. Oh, that's all that is. I didn't bother to take that apart. I just tried to flush it out with some brake clean. Okay, let me go find some O-rings. I'll be right back. Okay, guys, progress report here. So I've got O-ring for the rear servo is good. This O-ring is good on this piston for the intermediate, yes. And this O-ring is good. But this O-ring in here I don't have. I've got an O-ring for this in the kit that might work, but it's not quite right. So basically, long story short, this kit is missing 2 of the O-rings I need. Maybe we could argue and just say it's missing 1, that the O-ring for this would be okay, but it doesn't have much tension. I'd rather find another O-ring that's better for it. So, you know, like I keep hopping on this, but, you know, when you've been doing this for over 20 years like I have, and, you know, you got customers on your ass to get stuff done. When's it going to be done? When's it going to be done? You know, it's, you know, the kits are just not what they once were. You know, these kits used to always work, and these big corporations, they get involved and they decide they're going to make money, or, you know, cheapen or streamline this old stuff because they don't care about it. They don't sell much of it. This is what happens to you. And when you're a guy that you're not a professional, meaning you don't do this all the time and you don't have a stockpile of stuff hanging around, you're in trouble. And, you know, say I sold this gasket set to you, you're going to be contacting me. Hey man, I'm missing 2 O-rings out of that kit. Well, you know, I made $8 on that kit. You know, I can't get involved in it. You know, it's financial suicide selling stuff like this anymore, honestly. You know, you just kind of do it to help people out, and the problem is they get angry with you when they're missing an O-ring, and they think that you really try to pull one over on them, and, you know, the reality is, you know, you literally probably profited $8 on a gasket set like this, and it's like, man, this is not worth getting yelled at for. So, okay, I'm gonna, well, let me show you what I got here. If we go, I don't know if you can see this, but I've got some O-rings in there. I've got a bunch of O-rings in here, and I've got some other stashes around too, but that's what I'll be scrounging through. So let me put you on hold. I will let you know how long this takes me when I come back. Be right back. Alright guys, I am back. Okay, I made out. First drawer I looked in, I found the 2 O-rings I needed. Took me just under 5 minutes. So I'm pretty happy about that. Alrighty. So let's get back to it. Let me grab my trans prep here. Alright, so this intermediate servo, very important, very easy to forget an O-ring, and probably even easier to put the wrong O-ring on. So, you know, always take something like this, and then this fits in here, put it into the mating part, and just make sure, you know, make sure that O-ring feels like it compresses properly in there. And I know it's hard to explain that, but you just kind of get used to the way O-rings feel when they go in. So that's okay. And there's one inside here that this piston will go in, so you check that fit. I've already done all this, but on this side, this piece goes in here. This was the one in the kit that I told you it probably would have worked, but it just didn't have it just had very little tension on it. This one has much better tension, and this is the right O-ring. The other one was really like a one size too small, but you probably still could have gotten away with it. So there's an O-ring on the outside here. Now you got to be careful with this one, because some of them are, well, let me show you. I'll show you the other one that's in the kit. I think the diameters are usually the same, the outside diameter, but this one here, this is a square. It's not an O-ring, but it's a square cut or lathe cut seal. And the one that's actually in here is the same, but it has a smaller inside diameter. So the O-ring, or it's not an O-ring, but the seal is actually wider, and this is the narrow one. So sometimes what happens is people will put the narrow one in, and it's got the deep groove, so when you go to put this in here, it doesn't seal. So again, you know, you put that in there and check your fit. And obviously the O-ring should be protruding above the surface a little bit once it's in the groove. So you got to be careful of all that stuff. Alright, so let's start putting this bad boy together. Now, this is gonna go, I'm gonna lubricate inside here. This piston is gonna slide in there like that. Okay. And then this here is going to go in there, so let me lubricate this O-ring a little bit. Now, this piece actually press fits onto this, so easiest way to deal with this is just put it on the bench. And I'm just gonna get my hammer here. I'd really need two hands, but you just tap this. I'll need to do this off camera just so I don't goof it up. But and then, you know, this'll, you can see where there's going to be a screw that goes here. So give me 1 second so I can just tap this in using both my hands, and then I don't have to blow your eardrums out with hammer hits on this metal table. So 1 second. Okay, there it is. You know, you got to tap on it a little bit, but you shouldn't have to wail on it. You don't want to force it in crooked or anything. Just, you know, a little bit of finesse. So this assembly is together. So then in here, put some of your trans prep inside this bore. Do that. Just a light coat, you don't gotta go crazy. And then this spring is gonna go in there like that. And then this is gonna go in like this. And this is gonna kind of press down in there. And then we gotta put this snap ring on to hold it in. I need my other hand, so I'm going to blindfold you again. I need to just, you could squeeze this together with a clamp, or I'm going to put it in a vise and do it, just to hold this together for me, and I can get the snap ring in. So no real special tools, but that's how I'm going to do it. So give me 1 second. Okay, there it is. I just grabbed it like this in the vise and just compressed the piston. You don't have to put a lot of force on it, and then I just put my snap ring in. So that's what it looks like all back together again and ready to go for another 50 years or whatever, 70 years, I don't even know now. Okay, so here's our reverse. Same thing. Lubricate this bore. No rocket science there. Okay, make sure you put your piston right side up. This would be the wrong way. This would be the right way with the little nipple on the end there, whatever you want to call it. So that should go down in there like that. Now your spring, it's a conical spring, so the small end will go down there around that. And then this deal here, this has a tab on it, and this tab lines up with this slot here. So I'm going to need to compress this in the vise. And I've got this snap ring that holds that on. So once again, I'm going to blindfold you and go put that on. Be right back. Okay, and it doesn't really matter. You can see the gap in this snap ring here. It doesn't really matter in my mind where you put that, but I like to do it like this because when you go to remove the snap ring, if you ever need to again, you can just kind of grab this section with a pair of pliers and just rip it out of there, rather than trying to get in here with these little tabs, you know, which you can do, but it's just a preference. I don't really think it matters. Only thing that matters is, if you can see, this tab has to line up inside here, because this opening here, the arm goes inside here, the lever or whatever you want to call it. So we got to put that in next. So what I got to do is coat the inside of this bore real good with the trans prep and pack all our little needles in there. And then it has these washers, one washer on each side of this lever here. So you put one of these on each side, and then we can install that back into the body. That goes back in. This is the pin, and this pin's going to slide through this hole, and then this roll pin that's sticking up, that'll go into this hole in the pin to retain the pin. So I will put you on pause again while I pack those needles for you. Alright, there's all the little needles packed in there with the grease. I just wanted to show you that. Okay, I definitely need two hands, so I'm going to put this in. So what you do, you just feed it from the back side here and then down into the servo area. So that's going to go in like that. And then you got to remember to put your washers in here. Again, one on each side of the arm. And this washer's been bent up because they probably tried to drive the pin in without this being fully centered, you know. So another telltale sign that it's probably been rebuilt. And I don't know, you know, not to say that the guys at Ford that assembled this were perfect, but they probably were pretty close to perfect because this is just what they did, you know, so they probably didn't have these things happen too often, if ever. Okay, not a big deal, so let me do this. I'll be right back again. Okay, guys, here it is. Little bit of a pain, you know, you just got to be delicate with it. I'm sure guys that did a lot of these back in the day were pretty quick at it. I had a buddy, he used to do a lot of these, and I don't know, he used to tell me you just drop the needles in that bore, and he'd take a punch and just, I don't know, spin it, and the needles would just all fall into place. And I don't know. Maybe he was just trying to make me feel bad. But you know what would probably be helpful too, like if you did a lot of these, is to have another one of these pins that was short, you know, no longer than the width of this lever, and that would keep all the rollers in place for you while you slid the other pin in. But you know, I don't, you know, I was never like doing these every day, you know. I mean, they would come in here and there, but now they very occasionally come in, so don't care, you know. If it takes me 10 minutes to put it together, I don't care, you know. So, alright, now what we're going to do, we are going to put these two servos back into the case. So let me get set up for that, and we're going to put the rear in first. Doesn't really matter which one you do first, but I like to put the rear in first and then the front in. And okay, I will get set up for that, and I'll see you in a second. Okay guys, so this bolt that we had put in earlier for the placement of the center support, of course it's not going to come out for me by hand. There we go. So I'm going to take this bolt back out, because this is one of our hold downs for the rear servo. Alright, let's take that out. So I've put the little band adjuster in, and you can see it just slightly, that rounded portion sticking up. So I just want that to stick up just a little bit, and I'm going to put this in here. That's going to go in like that, and then our band, make sure that seats in the strut. So that's going to go on there like that. Okay. Trying to remember how I did this. I think kind of tip the case this way. Make that stay somehow. Alright. So this is going to go here like this. And I think what I got to do, as I put this servo in, we got to get that strut to engage. So I believe what I do is I take my little scribe here and I kind of lift this up and engage it as I place this. I'll need both hands for that. Let me see if I can put you guys here while I do that. I don't know if you'll see me. I'm not just going to hook in like that. I think I got it. Okay. I think I got it. That was easy. So let's go ahead and put this center support bolt back in. I apologize. Kind of needed my other hand for a second there. So I'm just going to thread this back in. Just snug. And then our other bolt, let me find that. Okay, that's going to go here. So we'll get that started. Let me go, I forgot, I gotta grab a wrench. I'll tighten those up. I'll be right back. Okay, now I tightened my band adjuster up some. Band's not tight, but it's not to spec or anything. Now, what I did, and again, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but I think what I used to like to do was, these two bolts are just snug, they're not tight, and I believe this here is our feed hole for the servo, so I kind of tightened up the band adjuster. Now what I like to do, there's some play in here, so I leave these a little loose and I put a little air on this, and I think you're going to see this housing, it'll kind of twist or settle in some way, and I used to like to let it do that because I didn't want it to. I figured under hydraulic load it would just move later, you know. So I just kind of, I don't know, I just let it do what it wants to do now, so that way it doesn't move later on and change your band adjustment setting or anything like that. Just kind of, I'm not saying this is important. It's just kind of one of those weird quirks that I had. So let's see if it'll do that. No, I didn't. Yeah, twist. Yeah, you can see it wants to, like here, it wanted to push this direction. I don't know if the camera caught that or not. So, okay, let me tighten that up, and I'll be right back again. Okay, got those tight. Now, adjusting this band. I'm going to adjust this band now. You know, I don't like to adjust bands by torque. You know, you torque and back off. I think that's fine when you can't see. What I mean is, you know, the pan's still on or valve body's in the way or whatever. I like to actually watch the bands come on. And I have different things I like to see depending on which band it is, which unit. I just have my own ideas on all this. And I know this sounds stupid, but when you adjust this with the factory settings, from my recollection, which I have not used in a long time, this arm has it's got a lot of leverage and it's got a lot of travel. And like if you look, this arm will damn near touch this housing here, or this cover is what it is. And I remember setting it up by factory and I'm like, man, that's a lot of travel, you know, and I'm only putting about 100 pounds of pressure on it. What happens when you're in reverse under some throttle and it's 200 pounds of pressure on it? You know, how close is this arm getting to the cover? You know, we don't want to hit that. So I didn't like a lot of clearance in there for that reason. So what I always do, and I do this on a lot of bands, here's the port. I use my rubber tip nozzle. And you can see how close that's getting. I don't like that. So what I'm going to do, I do two things on this band. I tighten it up where I don't see an insane amount of movement, where I'm worried about the band breaking in a little bit or wearing in a little bit and then starting to hit the cover. But I also like to take a screwdriver and pry up on it. That way I can feel when the band is actually tightened around the drum. I can feel that we have clearance, because here's the thing with bands. I don't obsess about, like I said, a torque reading or, you know, torque it to this, back off 1 1/4, you know, whatever it is. People try to be really precise on it. To me, again, if you can't see in the unit and you got nothing else to go off, well, that's fine. You do what you got to do. But first of all, band adjustment isn't, to me, insanely critical. You've got some tolerance there. But again, depending on which transmission, which location, what the function of the band is, all kind of determines what I like to see. So here's what we're doing here. Don't care if there's a lot of clearance in it, other than I don't want this lever, you know, hitting that cover, you know, like I've said 15 times. So I'm going to tighten it up as much as I can without the band dragging on the drum, is basically what I'm going to do. And I'm going to do this all by feel. And it's going to be a combination of me prying on here, because I can feel when the band is made contact with that. If I just air check it, I can't tell that. So I'm going to, what I do is I take the screwdriver and I pry on it until I think, okay, that's not a lot of clearance, but enough clearance where I feel like the band's not dragging. And then I'll use the air to look and say, okay, I'm comfortably away from this cover. I don't really have to worry about hitting it at a later date when it wears in a little. So those are the two things I'm looking for here. So I'm going to go off camera, I'm going to adjust this, and then I'll show you the final adjustment. So give me 1 second. Okay guys, so I know I make a big deal out of everything. You're noticing that by now. Here we go. So you can see we still got plenty of clearance there, and the band is loose on the drum, so it's not going to drag and all that sort of stuff. Okay, that's how I did it. I didn't use a factory spec or anything like that. And you know what? If you don't like that, go ahead and use a factory spec. You know, whatever you're comfortable with. I'm just showing you the way I like to do it. All right, now. Next order of business here, intermediate servo. So, and remember, like I said, very important that we get this band in the correct way. So, you can see that, you know, that counter bore there goes against this round rod here, like that. If the rear band was on backwards, wouldn't matter. Front band, this one does matter. So, this one's a little tricky. You've got to get, this is the band strut, and this needs to go back here, and my hand's in the way, I'm sorry, and don't want to drop it in there, but, so if you look at this, see one side's wider than the other. The wide side is going to go on the servo lever, and then the narrow side, this side, is going to go into your band. Now, what I like to do, because I've had this happen a lot, I take one of these shop towels or something and I shove it up in here. And the reason I do this, 2 reasons. It kind of holds my band in place a little bit, and I'll shove that in more when I get 2 hands. And if I drop the strut, it's not going to fall down inside the case and I end up spending 20 minutes trying to retrieve it. It'll just fall on that shop towel. Of course, you got to remember to take shop towel out after. But I put that there to save myself some grief. Okay, so what I have to try to do, and of course I got to do this off camera because definitely need both hands. I'm going to put this end in, and I'm going to try to hold it with my little hook here. And you got to pull back on this, hold that strut, and then come in and get this arm hooked on it and in there, okay? And I'm gonna get my bolts ready. So when I do get in position, so I gotta find those, and that's what I'm gonna do. So here's my bolts here. Those are the 2 bolts. Alright, I'm sorry you can't see this, but there might be a couple of choice words thrown that maybe you don't need to hear. So, alright, hang on 1 second. Okay, I got that. I don't think you can see down in there, but we got that hooked. What I kind of ended up doing was kind of putting, you know, like a peace sign. You know, I kind of went in there, held it up, and then I brought the servo in and hooked it. So that worked out. And I took my blue towel out of there already. So, and I did drop the strut once or twice, and I was glad that was in there. Okay. So this band adjustment here, if you pull this back, and you see there's a gap there, you know, roughly 3/16. And if you want, you can just take a 3/16 drill bit or whatever you got around that's about 3/16 of an inch thick, and just, you know, pull this back and check it, and then you just tighten up this jam nut here. And you can air check this also. I believe this is apply. No, sorry. That's release. Good to air check that. Make sure you didn't forget an O-ring. and then the side, you can see that. And again, not a ton of clearance in it, because with the leverage you get on that arm, it really travels the servo very far, so you don't want a lot of clearance in it. These from the factory sometimes seem to have a lot of clearance, but just when you set this, just put a screwdriver here, and not a lot of tension, but a little bit of tension till you feel you really compress the band good, and then set your use your drill bit or whatever, 3/16 and set that to that dimension, and that'll be good to go. All right, let's see, we are almost 36 minutes in. All we got done was the servos. All right, maybe I talk too much. That's what my wife says. So, alrighty, I'm gonna wrap up on this video. We've got a fair amount to do. I'm gonna show you how to do the linkage. That's tricky because you've got a check ball and a very uncooperative spring for the detent. So I'm going to show you how to do that. That'll be in the next video. We'll do the valve bodies, hopefully. We'll put the front pump on. That's a piece of cake. And, hopefully start putting tubes on and things. I think this is part 3, so I'm thinking it might take 2 more. This might be a 5-parter. I don't know. So I might. There's a lot of little things to explain to you as we go along the way. I'm going to put this on. I talked about this. I haven't done this yet. Put this cover on. Now, one thing I wanted to mention. I was looking. Where the heck are the screws here? Here's one of them. This screw. It's got a little gasket on it. Well, of course, in the kit, the kit used to have a replacement washer for these, but of course this new kit here does not have those. That would be too much to ask. Good news is this appears to be in pretty good condition, so I'm just going to reuse it. If you had to, you could put a little bit of gasket sealer on there, or maybe get an O-ring or something. You're just gonna, if you're stuck with these kits like they are today, and there's probably a better kit out there. This is just what I could get. I think I had to mail order it and wait for it. They had it we got 50 stores and one store has it, so kind of thing. There's other sources, of course, but I don't know what to tell you there. I don't know what I used to use a Toledo trans kit when I used to build a lot of these, and I was very happy with it. I've used a couple other kits that I did not like. I won't say names, but if you can still get one of those TTK Toledo trans kits, I can't say it's still good, but it used to be good. So anyways, if I had more time, I'd search around for one of those. But anyways, that's it for this video. So we're getting close. Stay tuned for part 4, and we will do the valve bodies and put the tubes in and all that fun stuff. So I'm happy with the progress. We've had a few hiccups along the way, but that's okay. That's stuff you guys need to see. I want you to know what you're getting yourself into if you're doing this. And I want you to stop complaining that transmission guys charge too much. I want you to do that too. But that's, that's my biased opinion there. I want to be able to charge you more. This unit here is, I didn't put a single bushing in it. The bushings are in really good shape. I gotta say, this has got to be one of the best condition units that's ever come in here that I can remember. It honestly has, but you know, I'll tell the customer how difficult it was and all the stuff I had to replace, and you know, and really pad the bill. No, I'm only kidding. I'm not going to do that. Customer's probably going to see this video. I'm always happy to give a customer good news. I have so much work. I don't need to. I don't need to rip anybody off. I've got plenty of other things to do and keep going here and making money. So I have the luxury of being honest. So okay, yeah, happy to report to this customer that this unit was in good shape, and I'm sure that car is going to be beautiful. It's being fully restored by these guys, and from what I can see, they do some fantastic work. So anyways, all right. See you on the next one, maybe, if I haven't bored you to death by now. Thanks for watching.